had been detained by the North Koreans because supposedly he was trying to steal a poster from his hotel room. There he is right there at his short trial where he begged for mercy. He was given 15 years hard labor. And then last week, he was returned, and North Korea said, look, he had botulism and he took some sleeping pills, but he had an extensive loss of brain tissue in all regions of his brain, and his American doctors could not figure out what happened other than he was maltreated.
That's right. The president spoke about it. Here's what he said.
I just wanted to pass on word that Otto Warmbier has just passed away. He spent a year and a half in North Korea. A lot of bad things happened, but at least we got him home to be with his parents, where they were so happy to see him, even though he was in very tough condition. But he just passed away a little while ago. It's a brutal regime, and we'll be able to handle it.
And if you think about the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
He was 22 years old, had his whole life ahead of him. Yeah. Now you have Congressman Ed Royce from California. He's saying he's calling for us to ban all travel to North Korea. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State's demanding that those 3 other American prisoners come home.
That's right.
And then the Young Pioneer Tours, that was the tourist group that organized his trip. They're saying they're no longer going to send their students into North Korea.
Good thinking.
Yeah, so if you think about this, you know the president is enraged on this. And for those people who think, well, you know, the president just says whatever he thinks and tweets whatever, doesn't care about the ramifications, when it comes to international affairs, things that nationally impact the country, he was measured. He was keeping his cards to himself. He's going to let his people behind the scenes ratchet up the pressure because you know he feels for his family. You know that he's had personal interaction with his family. You know that he can really relate to a young man at that age with his array of children that he's had and the empathy that he's shown throughout the campaign. And I think behind the scenes, the pressure is going to really increase. And all I wanted to think about, Otto Warmbier is an American. We have 3 other people there, so we got to definitely watch our words. Think about when they take the cover off that country, how much other torturous activity has been taking place over the last 50 years, how brutal it's going to be. It's going to be as bad as anything that we've learned throughout our past. When you talk about what the Nazis did to their people, and when you talk about the killing fields of what we witnessed over there.
Well, you look at the comments of Otto's father, Fred. He had that press conference very emotional last week where he was wearing the same jacket that his son was wearing. He had praise for the Trump administration and what they did. He was not kind, however, to the Obama administration, nor John Kerry, because he feels like they just didn't do enough. And we were looking at their at the Twitter feeds for John Kerry and Barack Obama this morning. No mention of this, even though many people from both sides of the aisle have talked about what an injustice this was. There's a fellow by the name of Michael Malice. He was on last night with Martha and said, look, he was not, Otto Warmbier, was not a prisoner. He was being used essentially as a political hostage. Watch this.
This kid was never a prisoner. He was a hostage. He was a bargaining chip, and that's how they hold anyone who's in North Korea, because they're going to get something out of them. When they captured that Ling reporter, they had Bill Clinton get on a plane to Pyongyang, and he bowed down and kissed Kim Jong-il's ring, and then Kim Jong-il could say to North Korean people, look, I make American presidents bow down before me. So they're very logical in their depravity. I don't know if this is going to change at all. We've known they've kidnapped people for many, many years, and people have complained, and they have nuclear weapons, and they're defiant, and there's no easy answer when you're dealing with a bunch of gangsters who are glad to kill their own.
Eventually, North Korea killed him and sent him home so that he could take his last few breaths and be with his family and to send a message here to the United States.
Right. And just think about this. We're the world's superpower, the best army, the highest technological skill. We got the nuclear weapons, destroy it, and still, because we have a civilized way about us and we have a series of morals and ethics that's being used against us with these renegades regimes like this. The question is, what kind of pressure can we now put on China publicly and privately to start that regime, which is fed by that country, could start really feeling the pressure?
Well, frame it the way that Michael Malice just did. Don't think of them as prisoners. Think of them as hostages. We have 3 hostages over there. The big question for the president is, what is the penalty.
And time is of the essence. I mean, if
sure.
President Obama had stepped in, the question is if he had stepped in earlier, where would we be now? Would he be living a full life here with his family and his 2 other siblings? Sure. He was 22 years old. As a parent, could you imagine what they're going through?
And not hearing from him.
And not hearing from him for 17 months.
They didn't even know he was in a coma until they got word that he was coming home.
Did you see the video of him coming off the plane? They're carrying him off the plane. He can't even walk.
Absolutely
the doctor
terrible.
said that he had no signs of understanding any language, didn't respond to any verbal commands, suffered severe neurological injury, and was in a vegetative state.
Right.
But they said they had a sense of peace about him once he got home, as if on some level he realized he was
With
in a
Mom and
friendly
Dad.
space. Yeah.
Well, let's hope so. So what do you think? What do you think the United States should do? Should it be something where we go in there and bomb them? Should there be a decapitation strike where you just send some team in after the guy who runs that country? Or is there something else? We'd love to hear from you. Friends at FoxNews.com, or you could Facebook us or tweet us, because we are live on social media.
Meanwhile, the president and his agenda, what is getting done legislatively? What can the White House actually do? Well, in many cases, sit and watch. Watch as Congress goes on vacation, or will they? Being that they are so far behind in normal budgetary the process, let alone legislation that has to get passed, they're considering not taking August off, forgetting about their normal recess and working through it. They got to do that.
Well, they're saying that they aren't reaching a deal. They don't think they're going to reach a deal on health care. Some were giving the date of July 4th. People are now saying that is highly unlikely.
But don't give up on that yet. Mitch McConnell has not backed off that.
All right.
Before the 4th of July, though, it does look unlikely.
That's right around the corner. That's like a week away.
Keep in mind, so what the Democrats have done is they have taken apparently that group Injustice. I think, is it called Injustice? No, it is called. Hold on.
What
hold
group
on.
is this?
I'm going to tell you right now.
What do they do?
I made some notes. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Indivisible. Here it was right here. Indivisible. It's the name of the group. I was so close to it. What they've done is they've got a playbook. These are the same groups. This is the same group that has gone to all the Republican town halls. What they've done is they've said, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to gum up the works of the Senate so that everything grinds to a halt. Their idea is to bog down the vote by filing thousands of nonsense amendments to the bill. In the meantime, the Republicans are not helping things because nobody's seen it in public. Nobody has any idea what's in it.
And I just add this. That's what you normally do when the Gang of Six, the Gang of Eight, when you want to redo immigration. You get a smaller group, a working group. The same thing with Simpson Bowles. You get a group together, then you go, here's the big picture.
Yeah, but people know what's
right. And you can walk into those meetings at any moment and just say, hey, guys, what are you talking about? Senator Schumer could walk right into that room and say, what are you guys working on? As Senator Jeff Flake said yesterday, yeah, I'm not in the group, but it doesn't mean I don't have access to it.
Well, I would be really surprised if the Republicans got together and said we're going to come back to work for the full month of August. Wouldn't you be surprised?
It would be surprising if Mitch McConnell said, okay, let's go ahead and do that, because it would just be the Senate.
Senator Perdue said that there are 15 Republicans that he knows of that wouldn't be willing to do it.
Well, with Jillian Milley, she's taking off all of August.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
I'm unaware. Are you granting me all of August
What are you,
off?
suspending her?
No, I'm just saying we need her to come to work.
All right, I will come to work. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin right now with a Fox News alert. All eyes on Georgia today. In less than an hour, voters will start heading to the polls for the high-stakes special election. Republican Karen Handel facing Democrat John Ossoff for the congressional seat left vacant by Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. And on the night before the big race, a Washington Free Beacon reporter says he was barred from covering an Ossoff event and escorted out by a campaign staffer. Republican candidate Karen Handel will join Fox and Friends in the 8 a.m. hour. Stay tuned for that. The U.S. will not back down. That's the message military leaders are sending after Russia threatens to target American and coalition planes in western Syria. The Pentagon says we won't hesitate to defend ourselves. The latest threat comes after a U.S. fighter jet shot down a Syrian warplane that dropped bombs near U.S.-backed fighters. A Senate floor showdown overnight. Democrats seizing control of the floor, demanding Republicans hold a hearing on the health care bill.
Republicans won't relent and debate their health care bill in the open for the American people to see. They shouldn't expect business as usual.
The talkathon ending just after midnight. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi taking it one step further, saying, quote, Trump care's assault on seniors and working families is indefensible and Republicans on both sides of the Capitol know it. That's a look at your headlines, guys. I'm going to go back to my computer right now and look up where I'm going to go on vacation.
Yeah, you have a whole month off. Absolutely, Jillian.
Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Meanwhile, there are a lot of anonymous sources out there, as President Trump often points out.
The dishonest media, which has published one false story after another, they are part of the corrupt system.
So, how do you know what to believe? A former CIA officer with how to vet your news like an agent next.
You know, the increase in TV news stories and newspaper stories based on secret and anonymous sources is growing, has many people wondering how trustworthy are those sources, really? Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein echoing that concern, saying, quote, Americans should exercise caution before accepting as true any stories attributed to anonymous officials. So how can you tell if the media sources are accurate? Well, you know what? You can actually vet them for yourselves. We've got former CIA officer Brian Dean Wright joins us from Phoenix, Arizona, where, Brian, what's the temperature this morning in Phoenix?
I believe we're at a very cool 94. Okay. So, yes, chilly.
It is indeed. All right. Let's talk a little bit about how people should be skeptical about anonymous sources. How would you vet your news source like you would as a CIA agent?
Well, we would ask basically 5 different kinds of questions. The first is identity. Can the individual confirm who they are and where they work, which then feeds into the second, access. Do they have, or should they have, do they have a reason to have the information that they claim to have? Is it something that they directly have and control? Or secondly, are they using subsources? So that's the next piece that we would ask. Mm-hmm. The third, and I think very, very important, is motivation. Volunteers, when they come to, former intelligence officers such as myself, they have all kinds of different motivations for doing that. So ego, revenge, money. Understanding why people are coming to you is incredibly important, right? Next, corroboration, right? I want to make sure that the person that is speaking to me, that there are others who can clarify and confirm that that person is saying the exact same thing and it is indeed correct. So those kinds of pieces are incredibly important. The final one that I think is one that perhaps is not really common in the agency, but we see a lot in the media, is bias. So the reporter who's telling us whatever they want to convey, are they bought and sold by this source? Do they want to push this source's information? How about the editors and the owners? Do they want to make sure that we get this perspective? That's what's important.
Sure, and when you talk about bias, you've got to figure, in Washington, D.C., which is presumably the source of a lot of these anonymous reports, a lot of people there simply don't like Donald Trump and will like to do anything they can to destroy him. And so when you talk about what you do as a CIA agent, where you have these volunteers come in, you say that generally the information they provide to the CIA is lousy.
It is. It's basically the equivalent of celebrity gossip, right? There might be a time or a little bit or piece of truth, but it's mostly garbage.
And so the motivation for them is to do damage to the president, right?
Well, I think that you've seen this in multiple administrations, but you're definitely seeing, I think, in hyper sort of speed right now under this administration. That's true. That's fair.
All right. Interesting stuff. How to vet your news source as a CIA agent would. Brian Dean Wright, we thank you very much for joining us today from Phoenix, Arizona. Stay cool today.
Will do.
Yeah, good luck. It's hot out there. All right, 20 after the top of the hour. What do you think about that? Let us know. Meanwhile, we saw firsthand how MS-13 is being hunted down in Suffolk County, New York, when Brian went around with the police on a ride-along. This morning, the sheriff of that county will testify about the deadly gang. But first, he's here live and thanking President Trump.
We have some quick headlines for you. Press Secretary Sean Spicer is taking a step back from the podium for a new role at the White House. He will now oversee the entire communications operations, including the press office. Spicer's new position is considered a promotion, but it does not yet have an official title. It's unclear who's going to take over the regular briefing duties. And is Joe Biden the Democrats' only hope? A Morning Consult Politico survey finding the former vice president tops the list of potential Democratic presidential contenders in 2020 with a 74% favorability rating. Brian?
Ainsley, the Trump administration has talked tough on gangs.
We will prosecute gang members who commit crimes to the fullest extent of the law, and after they've been convicted, if they're not here lawfully, they're going to be deported. I have a message for the gangs that target our young people. We are targeting you. We're coming after you.
And they did. That was in April in Central Islip, and then there's now. That pledge paying off. Since those comments, New York, Suffolk County on Long Island has arrested more than 40 MS-13 members, a third of which were unaccompanied minors when they came to this country. Here now is the Suffolk County Sheriff Vincent DeMarco, who's testifying before the MS-13 about MS-13 in federal court today. Sheriff, thanks so much for being here. What's changed since April 28th and when the Attorney General came to Long Island?
The Attorney General made a commitment to come in here and start eradicating the gangs, and that's exactly what they're doing. And it's a big difference. Since John Kelly's taken over Homeland Security, the relationship between local government and Homeland Security has been phenomenal. A lot of communication, and they're actually allowed to do their job now.
Why does that matter? Why does it matter between the communication, federal government and local? That cooperation should be implicit in their doctrine.
It should. We gather on the local level a lot of intelligence from local street arrests we make. Right now, we have probably 30 MS-13 members incarcerated in the county jail, and we've been interviewing them, taking notes, and some of those notes I'm going to share with the committee today. But we share those with Homeland Security, we share them with the FBI, and that communication is very important. And being able to act on that information is even more important, and that's what you're seeing Homeland Security investigations do now. Unbelievable. So you feel as though the ICE agents have expressed to you they feel empowered. ICE and the gang unit, who I had the privilege of driving around with, they feel as though the government backs them up. And it has resulted into the not only picking up MS-13 gang members, but leaders on the streets, especially in this working class community over in Brentwood, Long Island. Yes. Listen, the community, I believe, loves what we're doing here because we're making their community safer. And as far as Homeland Security and ICE agents, when I communicate with them, they just feel like they're allowed to do their job now. And it seems so simple, but it's such a big deal. I mean, we have laws on the books. They weren't allowed to enforce those laws. They were not allowed to do their job. People talk about discretion, but that's a very slippery slope in law enforcement, giving officers too much discretion. That leads to corruption eventually. I'm not going to reveal, because it wouldn't help you guys, but the new technology that Homeland Security has given to you, your gang units, enable you to be able to track these guys where you're never able to track them before and maybe solve some of the crimes that are out there. But in the big picture, when people saw the flood of illegals going across our border, unaccompanied minors, they said, America, how dare you condemn these illegals coming across? Open up your hearts, including, as far back as the Vatican. Well, a lot of those illegals turned out to be gang members commissioned to join MS-13, where they commit some of the most brutal crimes imaginable, where their where their weapons are usually hatchets. Yeah, machetes are the weapon of choice. Very brutal, very personal crimes when they murder people and assault them. But unaccompanied minor program has good intentions, but there is no enforcement of the rules of the program, and that's why we're winding up with these gang members here committing these horrific crimes. The sponsor families are not held accountable for these children, and that has to change, and that'll all be part of my testimony today. Right. And the interviews that I submit as testimony are going to be very powerful because you're going to be hearing it right from these kids who came over as unaccompanied minors. It's not me, it's not another congressman just giving stories. These are right out of the mouths of these kids. And to continue, what other message do you have for what else are we going to hear today if we were able to pick up your entire testimony? Well, I'm going to obviously praise Congressman Peter King for following through on his promise to bring the committee here to Long Island. President Donald Trump for following through on his commitment to eradicating gangs, and also going to talk about the unaccompanied minor program. And the big thing for me is going to be speaking about these interviews, and I'll be discussing 2 of the interviews, but I'm going to be submitting about 10 of them in my submitted testimony. And you know what sticks out with me in the conversations with the parents of the slain and those in the
neighborhood. They said when the kids get off the bus, they used to hang out on the bus stop and go play sports afterwards. Now when the bus stops, they run home. They're in that much fear of their fellow gang, the other gang members, the people their own age in their own neighborhood. And hopefully that's coming to an end quickly. Sheriff Vincent DeMarco, thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, coming up straight ahead, a stunning development in the case of the Obama administration spying on Team Trump. All the evidence was shipped off to the Obama library, where the rules say it has to stay sealed for 5 years. And Todd Pirro is having breakfast with...
All right, welcome back to Fox and Friends. 27 minutes before the top of the hour, the President of the United States is up, and he wants people in Georgia's 6th District to vote for the Republican. He just tweeted, Karen Handel for Congress. She will fight for lower taxes, great health care, strong security, a hard worker who will never give up. Vote today, the president writes.
She's on a bit of a surge, too. I mean, she was as far as 8 points down. Now it's within the margin of error. I saw another poll yesterday, had him in a flat-footed tie.
Well, special election in Georgia because Tom Price became Health and Human Services Secretary, so now that seat is open. We will find out today who will take it. So what are the voters in Georgia this morning saying? Let's check in with Todd Pirro. He is talking to them live at the Sandy Springs Diner in Sandy Springs, Georgia. Good morning.
Good morning, Ainsley, Brian, and Steve. Yeah, if you hear the mainstream media and the Democrats talk about it, this is the biggest election in the history of elections. And if Karen Handel loses to Jon Ossoff, the world will end and President Trump will have a referendum against him. However, that's not necessarily what Leonard and Sandy think. First of all, let's meet Leonard. Leonard is a contractor. And first of all, who did you vote for in the special election?
Karen Handel.
All right. And why did you vote for Karen?
She didn't go to college or get a degree. Well, she went to college, but she didn't get a degree. I love that.
It's an interesting point. Now, let's talk about the issues that are important to you. You are a contractor, and you said education is a biggie for you. Why?
Because most of the people here can't read or write and do math. It's disgusting.
And math is kind of important when you're a contractor. You want buildings to stand up straight, not tilt.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about taxes as a small business owner. How long was your most recent tax return? You said 113 pages at one point?
Yeah, that was in the 80s.
That was in the 80s?
And 90s. But now it's down to just maybe 30 pages. So, you know, it's... You can't say pain in the... No.
You know what? Yeah, let's keep this clean. We're still in like the people getting ready for school and stuff. I'm going to go over to Sandy. No relation to Sandy Springs, which is where we are here.
That's right.
You're an administrator, and your taxes are also your big issue.
Yes, we pay way too many taxes, and what we get for the taxes is not a good value.
Okay, let's talk about the Georgia 6th here. First of all, who did you vote for?
Karen Handel.
Okay, and why did you vote for Karen?
I like Karen. She's not Pelosi. She's not the liberal California set. Karen's been conservative, so that's why I voted for her.
And there are a lot of people saying that the Democrat Jon Ossoff should be running in San Francisco as one of those liberals. Talk about that.
I agree, yeah. Pelosi has backed him. They put so much money behind him, trying to, in my mind, trying to steal this election.
Understood. Speaking of money, $50 million. That beats the other election. That was the biggest spending election by like $20 million. Think about that. A lot of outside money here in the Georgia 6. It all comes down to today. We're going to be watching it. Guys, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Todd Pirro, live down in Georgia. During one of the debates, Karen Handel asked Jon Ossoff a question that he could not answer. She said, so who will you be voting for in the Georgia 6th election? He couldn't say his own name because he's not registered to vote there.
He doesn't live in the district.
He does not live there. He has been telling people apparently he lived 3 blocks away. He lives 3 miles away. So, anyway.
I mean, you would think he would get a lean-to or something in the district so he could vote and avoid that counterpart.
Well, he's getting married, so I think they might be moving into that district if he wins.
Maybe.
We're going to have Karen Handel.
Better.
We're going to have Karen Handel on the show. We did ask Jon Ossoff to come on the show, too. He declined, but we will have her, so you'll be able to hear exactly what she wants to do for that area of the country.
All right. It's exactly 22 minutes before the top of the hour on this very busy Tuesday, and Jillian joins us with the news.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin with this. key evidence on whether the Obama administration spied on the Trump team will be kept under lock and key for years. Judicial Watch says its request for Susan Rice's alleged unmasking documents was denied. The National Security Council dropping a bombshell, saying the documents were transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library in Chicago. The government watchdog group also told records are sealed for 5 years after an administration leaves office. Insensitivity in the wake of the shooting of Congressman Steve Scalise. A Democratic strategist tweeting, quote, with the hashtag Hunt Republican Congressman. Now you can see he says, we are in a war with selfish, foolish, and narcissistic rich people. Why is it a shock when things turn violent? Tucker Carlson confronting that man, James Devine, over his message. Take a look.
Take up arms? No, it is not about taking up arms. It is about coming together and fighting back.
You know what? You're an unbalanced person.
Devine says he does not condone violence. Shocking surveillance video showing a man grab a store employee by her hair and try to kidnap her. Take a look. You can see the woman struggling to escape as the man drags her into a storage room at a boutique in California. He pretended to be a customer before launching this attack and only left when the woman told him surveillance cameras were recording it all. He is under arrest and faces attempted kidnapping charges. Cowboys take matters into their own hands when a massive alligator threatens livestock. A Texas man first lassoing the beast before wrangling it with his bare hands. Watch.
Guys, cover it. Okay. There we go.
Oh my gosh.